From former European tennis star Barbara Schett's bold prediction, to Czech tennis star Karolina Pliskova saying that there's no flaws in Iga's game. These are pros explaining just how crazy good Iga Swiatek really is. Following a dominant 2022 season, Iga's taken the tennis world by storm. And prior to the start of the 2023 Australian Open, Eurosport tennis expert Barbara Schett was asked about Iga and was full of praise. The former world number 7 claims Iga has no real weaknesses and boldly predicted that she'll remain at number 1 this year as well. You know what they say, getting to the top is easier than staying there. And after all, once you reach the top, there's no place else to go but down. And clearly, if an expert such as Barbara predicts Iga will dominate professional tennis for another year, you know Iga's got the goods. Barbara claims it's Iga's drive and hunger for victories that make her an unstoppable force. And while it's true that Iga's been working on dealing with pressure, Barbara believes Swiatek will rise to the occasion, manage expectations, and remain the world number 1. After Australian tennis star Ashley Barty retired last year. Although, Barbara claims that 2023 won't be as dominant of a year for Iga as 2022 was, saying, "But it doesn't matter because she's got the consistency while having no real weaknesses." And as far as Schett's concerned, the biggest thing that Iga's got going for herself is the way she doesn't get carried away, and always keeps her composure. Barbara also predicts Iga will have many more of those win streaks that got her to the top in the first place. But Barbara's far from the only tennis champ giving Iga heaps of praise. Former Swedish world number 1 Mats Wilander's been equally blown away by Swiatek's tennis prowess. Matt says the only thing standing between Swiatek and winning 2 or 3 majors in 2023 is herself. According to Matt, Iga will have to accept the mindset of being and playing like she's the best, because that's the only way she can stay at the top. That's sage advice coming from Matt right there, and I doubt Iga will take it with a grain of salt. Matt definitely knows what it takes to win multiple Grand Slams and dominate the tennis world. At the same time, however, Matt's calling for patience, saying Iga's way too young and hasn't been around long enough to fully grasp the experience factor, and there's no shortcuts. That said, Matt is still backing her to go all the way in 2023, so as long as she doesn't stand in her own way. And as it turns out, Barbara and Matt aren't the only ones singing Iga's praise. The original bad boy of tennis, John McEnroe, has been in awe of the Polish superstar. And you can't overlook what Johnny Mac thinks about Swiatek's recent dominance. Johnny isn't one to analyze underlying numbers and stats, though. He just looks at the facts and tells it like it is. He stressed that Swiatek remains by far and away the best player in the WTA, even comparing the poll to another European all-time great, Novak Djokovic. That's some high praise right there. But Johnny thinks Iga deserves it due to her outstanding performances on the court. Johnny says he hasn't seen many other women slide into the corners the way Swiatek does, and that she might even be more aggressive than Novak, who, bear in mind, is a 22-time Grand Slam winner. McEnroe's also backing the 21-year-old to win at least a couple more French Opens. And considering she's a favorite in every tournament she plays, you can probably understand where he's coming from. Very few people dominated the tennis world as Swiatek did last year, and she's clearly a member of tennis's 1%, which is why McEnroe even compared her to Serena Williams during her crazy win streak, adding that Swiatek had that adaptability factor, which can make a player an all-time great. And believe it or not, those are hardly the biggest compliments Swiatek's ever received. She was recently labeled unbeatable by none other than American tennis legend Billie Jean King and newcomer Coco Gauff. King played against some of the greatest players of all time and definitely has an eye for talent. When King's playing days were over, she coached some of the best players the world's ever seen. So compliments from the former tennis queen are some of the greatest gifts young players can receive. After Iga secured the longest WTA win streak of the century, King was asked about what made Swiatek so tough to beat, and said it's Iga's athleticism and sharpened serve that are nearly impossible for her opponents to cope with. King further explained that Iga has 2 very different shots as her ground strokes, ranging from a heavy topspin forehand that goes on to bounce really high, to a contrasting flatter backhand that stays very low. These elements are what make Iga unbeatable and separate her from the rest. Billie Jean also praised the world number 1 for getting better and better, and said she was surprised by her speed on the court. Coco Gauff echoed King's sentiments after losing at the Roland Garros final, and said it was hard to keep up with Swiatek because of her ability to change direction, and thinks that not many players can hit winners down the line off certain shots. And because Iga does it with ease, it makes her a nightmare of an opponent, especially on clay. However, Coco's not the only young star to be impressed by Swiatek. British tennis champ Emma Raducanu says she can't even begin to compare herself to Iga, because Iga's been on tour a lot longer than she has. Well, before she made it to the WTA, Iga was a force of nature on the ITF tour, while Emma was in exam halls until last summer. Hilarious! Swiatek might only be 21 years old, but it feels like she's been around forever at this point. Another fellow tennis star who's been brimming with admiration and respect for Iga is former world number 1 Naomi Osaka. Naomi wishes she had the same kind of consistency when starting out that Iga has, and says it's awesome to see how well the defending French Open champion is doing, and that it's not easy to win 4 tournaments in a row, something Osaka's always wanted to do. Even Iga's fellow rivals can't get enough of her. 2022's US Open finalist Tunisian tennis star Ons Jabeur was in awe of Swiatek, and explained that most people don't understand that the key to Swiatek's dominance is her mentality, which allows her to be aggressive and present all the time. This was clear after Iga crushed Jabeur on both occasions last year, defeating her both in Rome and the US Open final. Jabeur praised Iga for improving her game in critical moments, and added that it's a characteristic that separates top players from the rest of the flock. Jabeur also vowed to learn from Iga, who she called the tour's leader. Another former world number 1 who climbed aboard the Swiatek hype train is none other than Wimbledon finalist in Czech tennis, Karolina Pliskova. Karolina maintains that she wasn't surprised after losing to Swiatek, because she's someone who doesn't make mistakes and plays a very safe game. Karolina says that Iga makes very few mistakes and that her game has no flaws whatsoever. And now, thanks to Iga's multiple victories, Karolina believes Swiatek has the self-assurance to make her unstoppable. Karolina isn't the only star to be crushed by Iga. Anett Kontaveit experienced the same dreadful feeling at the Doha final. Anett did win a few matches and was a Doha finalist. But after playing Iga, she knew she'd been completely outmatched and outclassed. Anett also revealed that she endured a tremendous amount of stress because of the way Iga plays, and felt overwhelmed throughout the match while Iga stayed perfectly calm. So there you have it. From Czech tennis star Karolina Pliskova saying that there are no flaws in Iga's game, to former European tennis star Barbara Schett's bold prediction. Those were pros explaining how crazy good Iga Swiatek really is.